Good morning, student. Today we are going to read a poem which name is A Tiger in the Zoo. In this poem, the poet explains the agony and helplessness of the tiger. How could he live in a zoo? The poet explains what his life could be if he lives in the forest. So the poet has tried to explain about the condition of animals that are live in zoo, that are caged by human beings for their own. So the poem begins with a description of a tiger that is very beautifully and is walking in his little cage. He was walking in a little cage. He has beautiful stripe on his skin and has velvet like soft paws. But the tiger is not happy. He is quite angry because he was being confined in the cage. So now the poet says that if the tiger was not confined in the cage, he would have been hiding himself behind the long grass. Here some water body which was nearby there in order to catch his prey, that is the deer. Also he would have terrorized the resident of the nearby village around the forest area. But the reality is totally opposite to this. He was confined in a cage. He was living in the zoo, which was made up of strong building material, and he was helpless there. He couldn't show his power to the visitors because his power was restricted. Therefore, never tried to terrorize them. So the tiger is described as being a powerless, agonized creature by the poet. So he says that during night he is also hearing the voices of the patrolling vehicles, of police, and looking at the stars. The cage life has totally changed tiger's personality. So there is a difference between the life in the zoo and the life in the forest, where he was enjoying the natural habitat. So the poet is trying to say that the animal which is famous for fearlessness and freedom is confined and sad due to the human beings who want to derive pleasure by looking at him in the zoo. So now we are reading the poem. I am going to explain one by one stanza. So I am first reading the poem. Let's start. He stalks in his vivid stripes. The few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. He should be lurking in the shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws terrorizing the village, but he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stars with his brilliant eye at the brilliant stars. So now, in the first stanza, the poet is saying that walks in his vivid stripes, tip of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet reach. So in the first stanza, the poem begins with a beautiful description of a tiger that is very beautiful and is walking in the little cage. He has a very beautiful stripes on his body. So here the poet is saying that the tiger is caged. The tiger is confined in the zoo and moves around the cage. He further says that the tiger can take only few steps. Why he was taking only few steps? Because the cage is small and it is not easy to move on it. One cannot hear the footsteps. Why one cannot hear the footsteps on pads of velvet quiet? Because he has a very soft feet like velvet, because of which there is no sound of the tiger's footsteps. In his quiet trees, the tiger tries to control his anger by walking in the limited area of his cage, and he is angry because he is not free. He should be lurking in the shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. So the poet says that if the tiger was free, he would have hid himself behind the long grasses near the water bodies so that he could easily catch his prey for its in order to have it as its food. Basically, the point want to say that the tiger, the actual life of the tiger is to live in the jungle where he can move easily, where he would catch his prey and eat it. But the tiger in the cage cannot do so. He has to remain in the cage, and he was not able to do all the activities which he can do in the zoo. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, bearing his white fang, his claws, terrorizing the village. So, the part says that if the tiger would have been free, if the tiger was free, he would have snarled around the houses. Snarling means warning sound which was made by the animals. So he would have snarled around the houses which was located at the outskirts of the jungle of the forest bearing his white fangs like his claws, terrorizing the village. He would terrorize the people with his white fangs. Fangs mean sharp tooth of animals. And his claws. So he terrorized the people with his sharp tooth and his claws. Thus, he would create fear among the people, those who are living in the village. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Now the point comes to the reality of the tiger that is inside the cage. Concrete mean building which was made of bricks, cement. Cell is the cage. So here the tiger is inside the cage. He says that the tiger is confined, so is in the strong cell which is made of strong building material. Further says that the tiger is behind the bars. He just stalks, he just move in the cage. He never tried to terrorize the visitor. Why he was not able to terrorize the visitor? Because his power is restricted by the cage. His strength behind the bar, his power was restricted. Therefore, he never terrorized the people. Visitors, as he cannot attack on them, and he has to live in the cage. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stare with his brilliant eyes and at the brilliant stars. The boy says that in the night the tiger hears the sound of patrolling cars. Patrolling means to guard, to whistle, to keep watch everything. So patrolling cars which was used by the police to guard at night. So in the night the tiger hears the sound of patrolling cars. He then stares the brilliant star, the shining stars, with his shining eyes. Brilliant eyes mean shining eyes. The poet want to say that the tiger is sad as he is confined in the cage. He cannot do anything. Therefore, he stares at the stars in the night and tries to divert his thoughts towards them. Now let's discuss the literary devices in the poem. The first figure of speech is use here personification. In the entire poem, the tiger is personified. Poet is saying he stalks, he should be lurking, he should be snarling, he is locked in the concrete cell. What is the personification? When non-living and non-human beings are endowed with the personality of a human beings. So this device is used. So here the tiger is personified. The poet refers him as he. Now let's discuss the next device, which is metaphor. Metaphor. In this poem, in the first stanza, tiger's paws was compared with the pads of velvet. So tiger's paw are compared with velvet, so metaphor was used here. Next figure of speech is consonants. Consonants is a use of consonant sounds. Here, s sound is repeated. He's saying stalks, stripes. So s is prominent here. So consonants figure of speech is used here. In this poem, the figure of speech we use is assonance. When there is a repetition of vowel sound, assonance is used. Here, should, around, houses, and I sound is repeated. Sound is repeated. So assonance is used. Here in the next paragraph, he locked in a concrete cell. E sound is use of E sound is assonance. And in the next stanza, brilliant with his brilliant, so I sound is prominent here, so assonance is used. So when there is a repetition of vowel sound, assonance is used. The next device is enjambment. In enjambment, the line is continuous without using of punctuation marks. Mean there is a no punctuation mark and the line is continuously used. So the entire poem is written in enjambment. The next figure of speech is used here, oxymoron. In oxymoron, there is a use of adjective words which are opposite to each other. Use of adjective opposite in the meaning, just as in the first stanza, fourth line, in his quiet trees, white and grease are opposite to each other, but they are used together. So when the opposite words are used, the literary device oxymoron is used here. Next literary device is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sound. So here plump, deer pass, pa sound is repeated. Next, behind bars, so ba sound is repeated. So when the sound, consonant sound is repeated, the alliteration is used. There are some examples of alliteration in this poem. We have discussed about the explanation of the poem and literary devices. Thanks for watching video.